Hi there, this is Love Johar. Thank you so much for tuning into this video and thank you so much for watching this channel. A very important concept regarding record retention will be discussed in this video. What is a record retention policy? What does it specifies? What are the main bases? What are the primary factors on which you actually implement the record retention policy in your organization? What are the driving factors? Okay. What is electronic discovery? What is e-discovery? Okay. What is the best way to ensure availability of electronic records in the organization? What is the retention policy in terms of storage and backups? Type and nature of application systems capable to retain intercept different types of data formats is the main criteria for planning record retention, and much more to discuss. So very important if you want to understand from a record retention policy perspective, and because this is very important from a compliance perspective also. Many compliances, especially financial compliances, clearly indicate record retention up to 8 years. So it is very important to have a proper record retention policy in place, and you need to understand what are the driving factors behind this record retention policy. Okay, so stay tuned and watch very carefully. Thank you so much. So, what is the record retention policy? Record retention policy, as the name suggests, specifies what type of data, what type of document needs to be required to be preserved, and what type of data and document needs to be destroyed. It's as simple as that. Okay. So, in this policy, it will make you understand what all information in the organization needs to be retained and what all information in the organization needs to be destroyed. It's as simple as that. Okay. So, record retention is primarily done based on two factors. This is very important from an interview perspective. Number one is business requirements. As I've already mentioned, in case of any financial information, if you are dealing with any financial data, then there is a legal requirement. That second thing which is mentioned, legal requirement is to make sure that you keep the data for 8 years. Okay. Similarly, this is happening for a business also. If a business is dealing with financial data, if a business is dealing with protected health information, then also there is a retention requirement in that case also. So, business requirement automatically becomes the case in this scenario, because if the business is dealing with such information, then it becomes a business requirement to have proper record retention policy in place. Okay, so number one factor is business requirement. Depends upon what type of data you are being processing in the business. If it is personal information, if it is medical information, if it is patient information, if it is credit card information, if it is any sort of you know credit card transactions, if there is anything that is actually being actually governed by some sort of legal authorities, regulatory requirements, then of course you need to have a record retention policy in place. Okay. Now, second thing is actually aligned with the first thing, which is business requirements. If you are processing some such sort of data, then of course the legal requirements and regulatory requirements will come into play. Okay, because your business is dealing with that data. Okay, so organizations generally design their business requirements after considering the relevant laws and regulations. Okay, that is what I was trying to say. So once you have once you have already identified what all the type of data is your business actually being processing. Okay, then accordingly you consider all the laws and regulations. Okay, and then you design the business requirements. Okay, this is how record retention policy is done. Okay, anybody can ask you. After that, what is e-discovery? Electronic discovery. Okay, electronic discovery is the process of identification, collection, and submission of electronic records in case of any lawsuit, in case of any investigation, in case of any calls, or in case of any emails suggested by the government agencies who are trying to help you in case of a ransomware attack, or in case of any sort of information breach in your organization. If they ask you for this information, if the government agencies want you to disclose this information, Then electronic discovery is the process of basically submitting all this information, identifying this information, and collection of this information, so that you can submit it to the investigation agencies. Okay, in case of any lawsuits, in case of any security breaches or things like that. Okay, so that is what is electronic discovery, e-discovery. Okay. So, what is the best way to ensure availability of electronics records? Okay, the best way to ensure availability of electronic records is to implement comprehensive retention policies, because the first thing that will be checked is your record retention policy. What is the record retention policy of the organization? And accordingly, if the record retention policy says that the financial information, book of accounts will stay for 8 years, so it has to stay for 8 years. Now, because it says so, that's so how you ensure the availability of electronic records, because your policies are mandating that to happen. Okay, that's how it works. The retention policy will detect the terms of storage, how it will be stored, where it will be stored, how much the frequency will be for the backups, how the backups will be done, and the access of the records, who can access the record, who cannot access the record, what are the permissions of that. Everything will be defined by the retention policy itself. Okay. After that, you have type and nature of application systems and media, and its capability to read and interpret different types of data formats. This is very important. Okay, because new application systems may not be able to read and interpret data generated by earlier applications. So when you design the record retention policy, you have to keep in mind that the application systems are able to understand and interpret the data. So you should not be using any sort of legacy systems, so that in case of any e-discovery process in the future, you might not be able to read and interpret the data generated by the earlier applications. So this is a major risk. Okay. So make sure that you understand this point. It is very, very critical. You have to make sure that all the applications which are using your data, financial data, medical data, you know, any sort of transactions, any sort of personal information. So all these applications are able to understand legacy information also. Example, if something you have stored as an archive 8 years before, and now you try to pull back that information from Amazon Glacier, and all of a sudden your application says I cannot interpret it, or there are some sort of errors while interpreting that information or reading that information out, then it's a major risk. So make sure that you take this into account while deciding your record retention policies. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video is very new and it makes sense to you. Anything else that you are following in your record retention policy in your organization, please feel free to add in the comment section. I would be more than happy to hear that. And thank you so much for staying tuned. Anything you are not clear, please feel free to add in the comment section. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.